in every single moment, I want to be able to show up in the fullness of myself so I can bring all of what I'm supposed to bring, or receive all of what I'm supposed to receive. And in my mind, that's the hardest work there is. Being present, staying connected, staying in conversation, in interaction, in communion with whatever you say you're doing in the moment is the hardest thing to do.
What a beautiful gallery of women today. I'm like, I think we got some men coming on, but right now we just got this beautiful gallery of women. So welcome. Today I'm so excited and honored to have Rha Goddess here. She is one of my favorite people on the planet. And in the last, just since 2019, I'm thinking so much about 2020 right now. In 2019, we shifted and I have been in a mastermind with her. So before that, we were just friends and I was kind of loving her and appreciating her from afar. And then in this year, I decided to do some masterminding with her for a couple of reasons. One is that she is the only person that I know. She may not actually be the only person, but she's the only one that I know that I see working at the intersection of social justice, entrepreneurship, and spirituality. She is talking about race. She's talking about activism. She's talking about artistry. She's talking about money. She's talking about spirituality. She's talking about all these things. And my experience before Rha was that I was missing a lot of those very real conversations, right? In the entrepreneur space, it just felt like it was all about creation, and that was a great conversation, but it felt like it was missing this kind of depth. And so I really wanted to just literally be in conversation with her about that. And it's been surprising and breathtaking. She is one of the most clear individuals I've ever experienced. The frameworks that she comes up with, the way that she organizes material in her mind is next fucking level. So I've been wanting her to be here for like 6 months. I'm super excited that she's here and that you guys are going to get to experience her directly. She runs a company called Move the Crowd, and you can learn a lot about her, sign up for her list. She's got a book already out and another book on the way. So there's lots of ways that you can learn from her, and we'll talk about that more towards the end. As always, use the chat, post your questions, the things that are turning you on, and we're gonna dive in here. Rha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's my joy to be here. And hey, ladies, how y'all doing? Really my joy and my honor to be able to spend this time with you all. And just please know that the love affair is mutual.
Love it. I love it.
Oh, in the interest of time.
Also, just to note, like, I've been talking about this book with these guys. This is because of Rha. So that may come up or may not. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So Rha, will you tell us just a little bit about your backstory? What was your definition of success when you were young?
Uh-huh.
And how were you wrong?
Ooh, that's a great question. So in terms of just my background, I come from, what I like to call a change of life baby, born into the intersection of civil rights and hip hop. So what that means is my parents were born in the 1920s. They had me in their 40s. So they, literally lived the civil rights history of this country. So they survived 2 decades of Jim Crow segregation. They marched and organized with Martin and Malcolm. And that was kind of the backdrop through which I was, raised. And then sort of in my own years of coming of age, hip hop kind of came onto the scene. And I'm talking about the early 70s. Yes, I'm dating myself. I know y'all can do the math. It's all good. But hip hop came onto the scene, and I was really like hooked from the age of 11 on. And those two sensibilities really created my context and my platform and my sort of values. You know, my parents instilled in us three really important things. You know, it was all about family, it was all about education, and it was all about community. And they used to say, you know, if you ever have any opportunity, you have a responsibility to make a way for other people. And they didn't just talk about that, they actually lived that. So we shared our home, we shared our clothes, we shared our food. You know, there were times I would show up at the dinner table, I didn't know what to expect. You know, somebody's house burned down, or, you know, my mom's kids who she taught at the time were going through a difficult time and they would be staying with us for a couple of days, or some new immigrant somehow that my mother bumped into who was new to the city. And they really, really walked that talk. And that very much was the sort of formative foundation for me. And so I was an activist at a very young age, engaged in political organizing, then turned into community organizing when I got very tainted with the politics. But I think this conversation of money and defining success in the context of the way that we traditionally define success, you know, in terms of me sort of being indoctrinated into that, didn't really happen until I graduated college and I went into corporate America. And then it was a whole other conversation. So for a long time growing up, it was about grassroots activism. It was about nurturing community. It was about engaging in education. And then, you know, I come into the corporate halls and I am one of two women of color in my industry at the time, like the entire industry. And I am having to give cultural lessons. Let's put this, you know, and it's important to sort of say this, that often pioneering women of color who come into corporate environments do diversity and inclusion whether they want to or not. Do you know what I mean? Just by virtue of the interactions and the questions that people ask you and the things that go down in meetings and the ways you have to kind of lovingly educate people and check people and ground people. And so I had the women thing, I had the young thing. So at that time I was in my 20s. And then I also had the cultural thing. But I will say to you, on some level, I drank the Kool-Aid, right, Jesse? Like, it was, okay, so now it's about the fly car and the awesome condo and the phenomenal boyfriend that I really don't need. And I constantly remind that I don't need because I can pay for my own martinis, whatever, right? And I did get caught up in that for a little while, you know? But some part of me was always, you know, coming back to what my parents instilled in me, you know? So even in my corporate days, I was very active in community. And so it was a struggle because I definitely feel like I was living these two lives, you know, this one life that sort of was all about the traditional definition, and then this other life that was really about serving other people and seeing communities thrive and seeing vulnerable populations be able to realize their full potential. And so I think those conversations were always warring on some level inside of me. And I believe that the work that we do at Move the Crowd was sort of my opportunity to start to make peace with what I think is the best of some aspects of traditional success, and then what I think is all about this opportunity to be of service and make a difference in the world.
So beautiful. The one of the things that strikes me about your story is that your, let's say, problematic definitions of success, as you're describing them, didn't come in until you were an adult.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people that have come on here, it's been the opposite, at least in the way that they tell the story. It's like something in our childhood. You know, for me, it was like pleasing people. Like if the people around me were happy with me, that was success, you know? And it's here I am, I'm almost 40, and that's my work still, you know? I'm like, I intellectually get it, but the day-to-day, breath-to-breath experience of my life is whenever there's an edge, that's where it is.
Yeah.
So I'm very struck by that aspect of your story, that you really feel like you got a really strong foundation from your family that then was like interrupted a little bit, disrupted a little bit, and then your third phase of life has been integration.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And to know that there is wealth you know, in other words, good on both sides, and there's dysfunction on both sides as well. And I think, you know, my testimony to the conversation of success now is being able to tell the truth about that on both sides of the equation, and really to discover that reconciliation, you know, of what is healthy ambition, what is, you know, still honor yourself. You know what I mean? It's all, you know, it's all of that.
I'm going to come back to this, but I want to ask you a different question just for a moment, if you're open to it, because I'm realizing that I think that you have probably really powerful insight about this. Okay, so the question is, same kind of question, but instead of success for you, like success for the world, has your concept of what it means for our world or our country to be doing what's successful for the country changed as you've gone through these 3 phases of your life?
Yeah, I would say to you, I think at the essence, it's always been about liberation, and it's always been about empowerment. But I will say that I think it's refined and clarified as I've grown and evolved as a person, as I've experienced the world and had more of a perspective on all of what's happening in our world. I think it's become more refined. And now I speak to it as being empowered citizenship, which is really about creating a world where every single one of us can thrive and prosper in whatever way that we see matters to us and makes a difference to us. And I think when we began the initial conversation of success and equal opportunity, you know, if I take it to the social justice side, equal opportunity, it was really all about the right to personal achievement. Like, I want to have access to the corner office. And we hear a lot of this in the conversation of women's empowerment, you know, right? What does it mean to take that chair in the C-suite? And, you know, and it's kind of deplorable when we kind of think about where we are compared to where we have the potential to be. And certainly the models and examples that other nations have set when they've made a commitment, right, to parity in women's leadership. However, what I've discovered on the front lines of doing this work, particularly over the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, is that there's also something about our right to contribute and our right to make a difference. And that our ability to feel successful has everything to do with our ability to know that we're making a contribution that matters. So it isn't anymore just like, let me show what I can do. I'm capable, I'm badass, I'm smart, like, yeah. But I would say that the next generation of this conversation is, let me see what I can move. Let me see what I can transform. Let me see what I can change. And the leveraging of all of our intellect and badassness to do that, to leave the world truly better than how we found it.
Mm-hmm. So powerful. You guys know what I'm talking about now. She's doing it. So, okay. So just then back to a very personal level for you, what is like day to day, breath to breath? What is success for you today, now in your life?
Success for me today is first of all, remembering that I'm sourced by something bigger than me. And it can be very easy to forget that, y'all. You know, you can make that, well, let me say me, I make all kinds of declarations, 9 p.m. about what it's going to be, you know, and then the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock. And I have all the reasons why I'm not wanting to get out of bed, or all the, you know what I'm saying, right? All of the things that get in the way sometimes of even just my ability to get out of bed in a way that's very focused and intentional. And I have to work at that. You know, that is a practice for me. And I think sometimes we get caught up in these beliefs or perceptions that the people who teach or the people who lead or the people who bring a lot of commentary through our social media channels, you know, like they just wake up, you know, what they say, Beyonce, I woke up this way. It's like, well, maybe not. You know, every single one of us, I don't care what level of success, has something that we're working on and working through. And I think for me in the day-to-day, it's how do I meet the promises that I make to myself about what I say is important every single day? And how do I prioritize that when I'm fighting the war of distractions? You know, I can get an email, a text, or a phone call that can take me into a loop that's 3 hours away from whatever it was that I promised myself that I was going to get done today. You know, so like the first revolution for me was acknowledging what's important to me, as opposed to what's important to everybody else. What's important to me today? When I think about vision, mission, purpose, when I think about quality of life, when I think about my own well-being and self-care, how's that planted first? And then how do I manage setting the kind of boundaries that I need to set in order to deliver on what I said was important today? So that for me, and you know, success, right? At the end of the day, like if I get there, even if I get halfway there, 3/4 of the way, you know, of the way there, right? Hands up. And then like, okay, and what needs to shift tomorrow to really get this done, or what didn't get done that needs to get done, you know, and the genuine commitment that whatever I'm saying yes to, whatever's in my calendar, that I'm bringing my all to it. And I'm taking the time and the energy to go, what do I need to do this in the highest form? And then acknowledging when I don't. Like, okay, so what you intended was here, and where you landed was here. And what do we need to do to reconcile that? Mm. You know?
One of my favorite experiences of your teachings actually happened before the mastermind started, when you were doing the what I think is a part of why I'm talking about this, because everybody should do this year, and now is probably a good time to start, is this ritual that you do around the new year, and the call to clean up anything that's unresolved, so that you go into 2020 for us real clean, real, like, not bringing in a bunch of the energy from the past.
Yeah.
And I just feel called to share this with all of you guys. Yesterday morning in my meditation, just felt the presence. Somebody came into my consciousness who I haven't spoken to in probably 6 months or more. She's not a close friend. She's just an acquaintance. But when her name came into my body, I felt this kind of contraction. Like, I wouldn't want her to be talking about me right now. I feel like she'd be saying or feeling bad things. And I was like, whoa, like how much more of that am I carrying around with me? Mm. And so the last 24 hours for me have just been remembering this real estate, physically, emotionally, intellectually, energetically. This is real estate for God. It's from God and it's for God. And when I give away part of that real estate to, thinking about someone in a negative way, or imagining them thinking about me in a negative way, I'm stealing that real estate back. I'm not letting it get used. And I immediately remembered this practice that you really, it's not that nobody has ever taught me about cleaning up, but your standard for it, I think, was the first time that I really ever heard someone speak like, zero toleration. I ain't bringing anything into the next year. Even if it takes me February to do all the cleanup, I'm not bringing it in.
Completion is a thing.
Completion, this is your word, yes.
Talk about it. Completion is a thing. There are cycles of energy that are connected with every single thing that we do. And when we don't complete a cycle of energy, in other words, we don't tie it up, whether it's just a communication that says received, have a nice day, right? That completes the transaction or completes the interaction. We carry the residue of that with us into whatever the next thing is that we're doing. And sometimes we don't realize, why am I so tired? Or why do I feel like doing the things that I know I need to do? Often it's because we have a lot of residue from incomplete interactions that's still in the way, or in some way is weighing us down, or in some ways is preoccupying our energetic field. And, you know, Move the Crowd, we are a community of practice. So we're a company, we're a movement, and we're a community of practice. And that's the way we describe it. And so what Jesse was referring to is the fact that every year we do something called Taking Stock in December. And it's a very thorough 4-step process for really completing the year, you know, and it sets us up for celebration, but the completion of the energy of the previous year. And then at every top of the year, I do a New Year's message. That's a channel download straight from God to me about what the year is about and about what we're going to be observing in the themes of the year. And those two practices support our ability to complete the energy and then to set the tone for the new cycle. And those practices are things for me that I've had to incorporate daily. Because in any given day, I can have 15 or 20 interactions. And then, you know, as I'm starting to sort of shut down my day, Jesse, to your point, these things are lingering. Like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't like what she said when we had, I need to circle back and, you know what I mean? Right, all those things. And then invariably what can happen is you wake up the next morning and the next day's demands come to you. And all of that debriefing that you did the night before, right, goes away. And then you interact with that person and they do it again. And you're like, damn, I was supposed to talk to them about, y'all hear what I'm saying? And we don't realize that those things steal energy. We don't realize also that those things nibble on our confidence or our ability to focus or our ability to implement or our ability to execute. Mm. And so I lovingly offer that rigor in that practice because I want to be present in every single moment. I want to be able to show up in the fullness of myself so I can bring all of what I'm supposed to bring or receive all of what I'm supposed to receive. And in my mind, that's the hardest work there is. Being present, staying connected, staying in conversation, in interaction, in communion with whatever you say you're doing in the moment is the hardest thing to do.
I love hearing you talk about this. I think in part because presence is one of those words that I hear a lot in spiritual contexts, meditation classes, invitations, get present. I probably use it, but it's not my go-to word. I don't think it's like, it doesn't always make sense to me. And I think that this is part of why, because most of the time, the way my old concept pre-Rha is that presence is something that you do or don't do in the moment. And I think that's true at some level, but what I hear you saying feels so generous because it's acknowledging that in order to do that, really, truly, 100% of my real estate, of my energy is for this moment. In order to show up that way, I got work to do to make sure that whatever it is that might be stealing my energy is released. And that's not necessarily just a decision, that might actually take some action or some conversation or some deep self-reflection or some, praying.
Yeah.
And that, so for me, that feels really like it's a very integrated model of what it means to practice presence, because it's not just a spiritual choice, it's a physical and material manifestation as well.
Yeah. All of the above. And I want to offer you all, ladies, just this practice. If you just took on completing your interactions with people, the quality of your relationships will increase tenfold. And so I want to invite Jesse, your class, because Jesse, you can't be in my presence more than 10 minutes and not get homework. So the first assignment I want to give you all is to look at, even just if you look at the interactions you've had today so far, like what's not complete? What didn't you say? Where do you know you need to lean in deeper with that person? What's not clear in the conversation in terms of what's going on? What may have triggered any kind of feeling? Anxiety, anger, sadness, disappointment, right? Frustration. And I want to encourage and invite you to circle back and get in there and complete the energy of those interactions, whether they're 5, or they're 10, or they're 3. And I just want you to notice what happens to the quality of that relationship when you're willing to consistently complete that energy and know that you can then apply it in every facet of what it is that you're doing.
I love this. I feel like this, there's so many more things I want to ask you about, Rha, but this actually feels like a place where it might be really helpful to dig in deeper and let people ask you some questions and specifically about this completion work. Like, I'm wondering if you guys can you think of an example of something that needs to be completed that you're aware of now that we could kind of look at together with Rha and her genius? Yeah, Tamara.
So I don't know if you guys can hear me really well, if you can nod, because I know that I'm in terrible connection, but I'm hanging on everywhere. This is really, really powerful. And so this actually stems with my relationship with my partner. And there is this beautiful conversation that I had with Jesse the other day about joining India, and my husband was in the room and he got to a hard no, which was beautiful, but there was this lingering unsaid and untalked about, which was when Jesse said, "What do you want more of?" And he said, "Me." And that was a very uncomfortable place all of a sudden. And I went down the next day and I had a conversation with him about him getting to a place to imagine as if our relationship had ended. What would happen if he could get himself to that space of understanding that the relationship between him and I is not the axis in which the world revolves around, that there is more to lean into for him there. And so I asked him, and this might have seemed like really an uncomfortable thing to ask your partner, to imagine and like, what would he be doing if we did not stay together? Like, worst case scenario, but we haven't had a conversation back. I don't know how to circle back to this. I don't even know what the completion would be in this. Like, there's a whole hell of discomfort going on, Rha.
Yeah. So I want to say, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for even having the courage to lean in, and there's a couple of things that I want to raise around this. And this is a big girl conversation, y'all, that we're about to enter into. Sometimes we think that being powerful means regulating our men in a very particular way. And so, whether it's I'm powerful, I need you to get your weight up, or I'm powerful, I need you to get out of my way, right? Or I'm powerful, catch my dust. Oh, and my coat, and my keys, you feel what I mean? They become our assistants, right? Our glorified assistants. And, we laugh because, it's real. But I want to say that when he asked the question, or rather when he made the statement, he wanted more of you, I probably would have had more questions than answers for him. What did you mean by that? I want to understand more of what you feel you're not getting in the context of our relationship together. So Tamara, the dynamic may be such that you do feel like maybe he's a little too clingy or a little too needy, and there's an opportunity for him to do some work around how he owns and embraces and honors his own autonomy and sovereignty. But there might be something being missed about just him wanting more intimate time with you, wanting more time connecting with you, and his ability to be vulnerable and really put that on the table and have that be fully heard. And then a real conversation ensues. This is never about doing things that you feel forced to do or obligated to do, because the truth is he may want more together time than you want, or he may feel like he needs more together time than you need, but allowing the room and the space for him to be fully expressed around what this is for him, so that you genuinely receive him, you genuinely understand him, you genuinely feel where he's coming from first, has got to happen. So I do want to say, sometimes we come quick with the answer, and the opportunity actually may be ask 5 more questions. so that you really make sure you understand what's going on for the other person before you come with the rebuttal or the response. So I want to say to you with your beloved, like, this is a series of conversations. There's something core, Tamara, that I think he's touching and you're touching. And I think your courage to go into that, like, I just want to continue to high five that. And I would recommend that you back up and ask him, what did you mean? What do you feel like you're needing? I want to better understand why you said me, so that I can be clear about how we talk through what may be the right next steps for both of us.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Can I just ask one follow-up question? And I'm serious about this advice because it's going to sound really strange. Whenever there is a conversation, Jeff takes like 100 years to answer one question. What do I do in the interim space where, you know what I mean? There's that processing going on, because uncomfortably, I want to like lean into that empty space and try and fill it.
Yeah, just see that. And know that that is a gender difference, right? Like, they want to lean in and fix it. We want to lean in and talk. You know, it's the whole, if you've ever done John Gray's work is brilliant. It's the whole conversation about dopamine and serotonin and understanding the differences in terms of gender and physiology there. A really phenomenal woman by the name of Allison Armstrong does work on relationships. And one of the things that she teaches in her work is, when you're in communication with men, when you ask them something, wait 10 seconds longer than you think you should before you jump in. And I think your practice may be the opportunity to learn how to sit in the uncomfortable silence with him, because he's also communicating through his silence. He's allowing you to bear witness to his struggle. You know, it doesn't come as quick for them. Y'all, they got to go to a whole other part of the brain to access a respectable answer when we ask them questions. You know, and it has to do with the physiology. For us, we like, it's why we win the argument every time. Really, if we're on our game, you know, they can't keep up, because they got to run to the back to process. Then they got to come back, and they can only do that one thing at a time, which is either listen or process a response. They can't do both. We can. We can listen. We can process. We can feel. We can emote. You feel what I mean? Like, we got all that happening in the conversation. So they show up as 5 steps behind us. But the truth is, it's just, they have a different way of engaging. And so I would say to you, like, your opportunity to practice being in stillness with him and really giving him space to process and think and respond has the potential, I think, to really shift that dynamic.
Thank you. That's a huge practice for me. So I really appreciate, like, talk about completion, that there it is. And is it Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus? That is the John Gray book that talks about the dopamine. Thank you very much.
It is. Yes. And you can just get on YouTube. Ladies, he's very entertaining. So get on YouTube too, and just like type in dopamine, serotonin. And you can watch.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this. I so appreciate you.
So welcome. So welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super powerful. I just to throw it in there, because we talk about sales often, more and more in this group, and I think that what Rha is saying is equally relevant in sales conversations. When you think that you know an answer, to you know, especially if you are, exactly, asking more questions, and to give more space. You know, and when we, as all of us women, I think that there's actually a wide range in this group, but I for sure am like Tamara. I'm like, real quick, I got a thing to say. I see it. I'm ready to go. You guys see that every time we meet. So to kind of make it a practice for those of us that are real quick with the response, to just like lean back and give space. This is also something that I learned as a teacher when I was working in New York City public schools, that kids needed 7 seconds to decide if they wanted to raise their hand. not 7 seconds to answer, 7 seconds to like, right, when you're like, any questions? Okay, moving on, right? But like, that's a long freaking time with 13-year-olds. But that was the practice that I learned, that in order to really make sure that the questions had space to emerge, that they needed time to think. So I love hearing this piece from you, Rha, about just the brain aspect, the chemistry, and how that informs it. That's not something that I don't think I haven't studied John Gray's work, so this is not something that I've thought about. Now I want to ask you about how you think about that in this new gender conversation that I know you're having. Like, because what the whole conversation we just had was quite heteronormative. How we don't have to go all the way down that rabbit hole, but will you just share with us a little bit about how you navigate those edges?
Yeah, you know, I love the challenge of this question, because we know we're now in a space where identity in general and every facet of identity is up for redefinition and self-definement. And in the context of gender fluidity, you know, there's also this question about where we are in the context of physiology, right? So you might think about it as it relates to energy. And we all have the capacity of both sets of energy, you know, the yin and the yang, right? The feminine and what is traditionally defined as the feminine and what's traditionally defined as the masculine. And so the practice I want to invite you into, and this is a beautiful thing for sales, right? So you can apply this to your sales work as well, as your ability to take people in will be the difference between your ability to build quick credibility, trust, and connection versus not. And the practice of really taking someone in is in many ways a lost art, because we're in such a rapid motion society and culture. You know, everything's happening at the speed of light, you know, and technology, we know, has been a massive game changer as it relates to that. Even as it relates to our expectation, we now expect things 100 times quicker than we might normally have, right? In a natural, organic interaction. And so this ability to take people in means that you're having the opportunity to assess, are they analytical? Are they more emotional? Do they tend to lean more towards a doing or a processing orientation? Are they seemingly or showing up as more extroverted than introverted? Do they seem more deliberative rather than sort of risk-taking and out there, right? And your ability to receive the ways in which people choose to show up and express themselves can give you those cues, right? So even if we took gender out of the conversation, Jessie, right? And we just said soul to soul, human being to human being, heart to heart, what am I experiencing as I'm engaging with you, right? So if I look at every single one of you and I just read, if I take the opportunity to just read your energy and the way that you may be leaning in or leaning back from this conversation, the way you may be, right, smiling or smirking, or the way you might be like, I don't know about this chick. I'm not quite sure. The verdict is still out, you know, or I'm thinking about what she said 15 minutes ago. I'm not even really necessarily here because she said something that triggered something 15 minutes ago, and I'm in that loop. But our ability to read and to see and to look with all of who we are, because 90% of our communication is not what we say. 90%, which is, you know, and they've done the studies and this and that, you know, and they've given you all the breakdowns, but I don't know how much we really stay present to that. But 90% of what people communicate, I believe, comes through their energy, is through what they don't say. And so our ability to hear the full communication is the training ground for our ability genuinely to be successful in anything that requires human interaction and engagement.
So good. Thank you. You guys have more questions? Oh yes, hello, Melissa.
Hello. So thank you for this beautiful communication, Rha. I'm curious, a little bit earlier we spoke about integration, and I'm curious if you could speak to how you within yourself managed to integrate this activist with that corporate-minded person, and then in the work that you do, how do you translate the artist activist self into corporate spaces?
Great question. So I think what supported the integration for me was being willing to give up a lot of the conditioning that I had received around both aspects of my identity. So there were some, sort of already established assumptions I had about what it meant to be this corporate executive, moving and shaking, button up against the glass ceiling with my stiletto, like let me in, right, that image and all of what I thought that was or wasn't. And then this activist, this sort of diehard fist in the air, power to the people, we're gonna tear the system down, energy. And being willing to allow myself to let go of anything that I felt like I had inherited about these images that was standing in the way of my ability to genuinely be myself and really embrace my inner mogul and embrace my inner change agent. When I was able to get to this place of like, oh, I can create it, because that was the other thing that was sort of moving up through the middle, was not only do I want to release the conditioning, but I have an opportunity to now really create it from nothing. And I can choose what I want to keep, I can choose what I want to throw away, and I can also decide what I want to build from scratch. And so the aspiration that drove the integration was wanting to be authentically me. Authentically, unapologetically me, whatever that looked like. And to learn how to be okay with those facets of myself that didn't fit the mold, right? In terms of how each side of me informs me, my inner change agent and activist really drives my love, curiosity, and commitment to serve people. That's at the center. And that's whether I'm in a corporate environment, whether I'm in a, deeply spiritual environment, whether I'm in a more change agent rooted social impact environment, or kind of anything in between. That part of me leads. My mogul comes into play when I look at systems, frameworks, organization, execution. Great idea, how are we gonna get it done? Lovely ideology, what's the practicum? And I'm big on both, because I think we need both, and I think our society we've kind of become polarized. It's like, oh, there's the people that talk and there are the people that do. Mm-hmm. We need people to do both. We need you to talk and we need you to do. We talk, we get new ideas, we get inspiration, we get inspired, we get motivated, and we still need that commitment to act. It's the yin and the yang energies. But I think that or those places where I bring my mogul in non-mogul environments has to do with this opportunity to not only hold space, but organize journey and frame experience in a way that people can really receive it and be inspired and moved by it in whatever way right? They choose to be inspired and moved in the moment.
Cool. And then that's very clear to me in terms of how you have navigated yourself internally. And then because so much of your work seems to be expressive and in a language maybe that in corporate spaces, let's say, they might not have access to yet. Mm-hmm. So were you having to shift the way the messaging outwardly appeared at first to enter those spaces, or is your process just like, this is it, and if that space can recognize that, then we will move forward? Is that question clear?
Totally.
Okay.
I think it's both and.
Okay.
I think the first thing anytime you're coming into any space is you lead with listening. You know, again, taking in the space, taking in the energy, taking in the dynamics, taking in the culture, hearing the language. Sometimes I'll come into a conversation and I'll ask for definitions of the language. I'll say, oh, y'all got lexicon, and everybody will laugh. And then I'll say, okay, so I'm hearing these words and I want to understand them. And then somebody will step in, you know, graciously and educate me around the lexicon. And then when I do begin to engage, it's my language, and I'm also looking for places where I can incorporate their language to make a connection. What I don't do, though I will say to you often, sometimes some of the strategic consulting around this, what I don't do is I don't sell out the language. I don't drink the Kool-Aid, especially if I know the environment is toxic. So I may point to the language, and then I may question, or I may speak or invite them to speak aspirationally about the concepts that they may be addressing or they may be saying, so that they start to get present to, even for themselves, that there may be a gap, you know, between what they think they're representing and what they may actually be representing, or what they think they mean and what they may actually be meaning. And that's, you know, again, that's a negotiation over time. But I will say to you that for better, for worse, I am not a fan of adopting certain behaviors in order to get in and then hopefully praying that you're going to move them. You know, I am much more a fan of be authentically you. And in being authentically you, invite them into the possibility of greater alignment and greater authenticity and greater integrity for themselves, while still respecting where they may be along that journey.
Thank you.
I'm trying to remember who asked this question. Betsy, I think you asked this question about like my relationship to, it was when I shared the story about my gyrotonic teacher talking about her pricing. And Betsy, I'm just connecting the dots. I think your question, we had this discussion about this very thing. And so I want to just name it part of what I'm getting, Rha, as you were talking, just to totally out myself, I had a like checkout moment where I was like, I don't understand what she's talking about. And then I was like, wait, she's talking about corporate. Oh, that's why I don't understand what she's talking about. Because I don't go there. I don't spend time there. Kat, Tanny, Kate, you guys go there. You understanding? Yes, they're all understanding. And then suddenly it was like, oh, then the light went on. And it was like, oh yeah, this is the same thing in one-on-one coaching. To be willing to see where the other person is, respect where they are, acknowledge where they are, but not go to where they are. It's like, it reminds me of Abraham Hicks and how they say, y'all always want us to come out of the vortex. We ain't coming. The only way we can help you is from in here. We're staying here. We love you. We love you so much, but you guys got to come here. And there's something powerful about the naming of the two. And what I hear you saying, Rha, in part, is that part of the way that you manifest your respect is through this listening, translating, unpacking, what do these words mean, and then being able to point to them from inside your shoes, your expertise, which is what they hired you for, what they brought you in for, what you're here for.
And I think sometimes we feel the pressure in any sales conversation or in any environment where we're coming into a new environment and we're introducing ourselves and we're showing up, we can feel a lot of pressure to like do the commercial, you know. And I've actually over the years leaned way, way back on that, to the point where, you know, they ask me questions, you know, because I'm so still in a room or I'm so quiet. I'm not coming in with a whole bunch to say. And it's because I'm really taking it in and I'm really feeling into the vibration of what's going on in the room. And again, listening not only to what's being said, but all of what may not be said or all of what's being communicated in energy. And it's okay to invite people to lean into you sometimes, regardless of where you are.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
Regardless of where you are, what do you mean?
Yeah, we can feel a pressure in certain places to have to like, look at me, hello. You know, even if we're quiet with it, or you know what I mean? Like, you know, I want to say that the desire to be seen, heard, felt, and understood is a human desire. So, you know, sometimes I think people feel like, oh, well, extroverts need that more than introverts do. That's not my experience. My experience is that even the quietest person wants to be acknowledged for their work, wants to be acknowledged for their contribution. And I think we can feel pressure in certain environments to feel like we gotta turn up in order to be seen. And the truth is, if you just allow the truth of who you are to come into the room, it aligns. Those who are supposed to find you. Those who are supposed to lean into you, lean into you. You know what I mean? So this is this next level of trusting that in any interaction. You know, now for some of us, we do come in and it's like party over here, and that's natural to who you are. Right? So I'm going to say to you, by all means, that's who you are, right? Bring the experience. That's who you are. For other people, that may not be your way, but you may sometimes feel a pressure, you know, to be that way in order to be seen or acknowledged or heard. And I want to say to you that all aspects of expression, when they are aligned and true, hold their true power. And there's nothing you got to do or be outside of you in order to magnetize whatever it is you're looking for, wanting for in any environment, in any situation, in any circumstance. What magnetizes is alignment. What magnetizes is integrity. What magnetizes is the truth. You know what I mean? Being true, being authentic to whatever the thing is. That's what attracts and what draws.
Thank you. I love that. You know, at the heart of this program, I think that's the core message that we keep returning to. You know, whether by design or accident, it comes through. I think it's part of why I wanted to bring, like, why guests are a part of the program, so that my way is not so dominant that people like get confused because I think I do that without meaning to say like, oh, my way is the best way. Like I do think that my way is the best way half the time. So that's the problem in my relationship. That's my growth edge always, because I got a really good way, you know? And to some extent in the nature of a coaching relationship, that's part of the thing, right? Like I know how to do this. You don't, let me teach you. There is that thing, but I am so clear that what you're saying is true. That what's working for me is working for me because it's mine. And that my job is not to give mine to everyone, but to help everyone find theirs. And so to bring in all of these guests who are very different from each other, to each speak about their own definition of success, their own relationship to that concept, how it has expanded and changed over time for them, has been part of my strategy in this program to help expand the range of data points, to inspire. Yes, like Rah's fucking incredible. Like everyone's inspired. I believe that. And that's the, we've been talking a little bit about this fence post. Not everybody knows this yet. This is a new metaphor I'm playing with, is like, there's the fence posts, and then there's the lateral planks that actually build the fence. You can't really do, you can't do with only one of them. You got to have both. So the fence posts in this program are these conversations with these individuals, me, the trainings, the Q&A, all that stuff. But then the integration work is for each of you to do on your own. It's where you take the little seeds, you know, this thing that Rha just said that I wrote down, what magnetizes alignment, integrity, truth, authenticity, and then figuring out what that means for you. What does that look like for you? What does it feel like for you when you move through the world with that level of clarity? What comes through? Because it's not going to look like me. It's not going to look like Rha. It's not going to feel like me or feel like Rha. It's going to have its own flavor, the Melissa Center flavor. And that's our, this also connects back to me too, Rha, the thing that you said in the beginning about how societally we want, what's so important is that people feel fully expressed in their right to contribute. I think that there's a connection here, right? When we know that who we are without changing it is of value, we build our confidence to bring that value to the world and serve. And that is like that's a social justice issue, and it's also a spiritual issue. That's why I love Rah's work so much. You have found that at the essence of these things, there isn't actually a gap, even though the communities often are non-overlapping.
Yeah, it's a human issue. And our well-being, I really do mean this, our mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial well-being is rooted in our ability to be fully in the truth of who we are. Any form of disease is a lack of alignment. That's all it is. And if you all don't bring what you're uniquely here to bring, we don't get it. We just don't get it. And it's our loss and it's your loss, right? It's our loss because then we don't get the world that we say we want to have. And it's your loss because then you don't get to be who you really are. And you don't get to see the incredibleness of who you are. So like, this is, in my mind, this is the only work there is alignment. Is coming home to the truth of who you are and the truth of what it is that you're here to offer and bring and be in the world, whether that's in your business, in your family, in your community, you know, you decide. But what we need is you. That's it.
What a juicy closing. I feel like this might be the first time that it feels like there has been closure, which is not surprising to me because you are the completion expert. So here we are, we've got 2 minutes. I think one of the things that would be the most juicy for me and for all of us, Rha, is actually just to hear, like, if people want more of you, where would you have them go? What's the starting point?
So I'm so excited to say, and it's been a long time coming, you all, but I have a new book out. This is my first one. And I joke and I say, you know, boy, it was a journey. It was a journey. Thank you so much. And it's going to be published January 21st, 2020, St. Martin's Press is publishing the book, but it is available for pre-order now. You can, and Jesse will give you a link if folks are interested and want to. I raised the book and I point to the book because I said, if anybody never does anything else with me, and they just want to have an experience of what I know and what I've come to learn over 30 years of being on the front lines of our humanity in every sort of way that I've been on the front lines of our humanity over the last 30 plus years, it's in this book. This book is really the blueprint for not only how you find your calling, but for how you address whatever may be in the way of you and what you know it is that you're here to do, or what you're wanting to figure out, right? Because some people, they're like, I have an inkling, but I'm not sure. Other people are like, I know, but I'm scared. Other people are like, I'm doing my calling, but it ain't paying the rent, right? Or I'm doing my calling, but I don't feel like I'm having the impact that I want to have. This book gets you to the heart of what you're here to do, and it addresses those three primary concerns, you know, that are rooted in who am I to be doing this? How do I make it pay? And how do I really move the needle on the things that I say matter? So I would say that this, you know, would be your start. And in the link we're going to give you, it gives you access to our Insider Club, which enables me to give you all other kinds of bonuses, which includes my video diary on the road to launch, which is really, I tell you the real of what goes on when your publisher calls you and like asks you, can you proof something that's 400 pages long in 3 hours, because production needs those edits to, you know, every morning when you wake up and you're getting ready to go take a stage, or you're getting ready to go have a major meeting, and there's all of this swirl, you know, happening. How do you ground and really get, you know, get ready for the game? So I invite you into that. And then our True Paid Good Summit, which will also be airing in late October. And all of those things you'll get access to through the link. So, you know, and it's all, you know, for the price of the book, $25. So, you know, I'd say let's start there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rha.
So welcome.
And if you guys are in LA, Rha also has live events sometimes. So I'll make sure to kind of ping you maybe a little more personally, because I think if you can be with her in physical, that's even more amazing.
Yeah, top of the year Metapreneur will be at it.
Great.
I'll keep
Perfect.
you on that.
Okay,
sure.
perfect. Rha, thank you.
My joy. And ladies, just thank you for taking the time. I know how busy and full your respective realities are. And it's just been a joy to be with you all. And I'm sending you love and all of the things that you're creating. And just thank you for being willing to lean in and learn from Jessie and lift your mission and your purpose in the world. Because, you know, like I said, we need you. But come on, mamas.
I love you all. Have an amazing week.
Big hug, big kiss.
Yeah.
Everything you want is already here.